Well, let's change the pace a little. I'm, of course, hosting this week while Chris Kenny is in Israel. And yesterday, he visited a kibbutz where over 100 people were killed by Hamas on October 7. Today, he joins us live from Jerusalem. Chris, it's really good to catch up with you. Thanks for coming on. Look, obviously, 18 months on from these attacks. What's it like over there now? What have you seen and witnessed in the past few days since you've been there?
Great to talk to you, Danica. We're in Jerusalem today on a glorious day outside the Yad Vashem Holocaust Memorial. But as you mentioned yesterday, I went down south. I'm here as part of an Australia-Israel Jewish Affairs Council study and information tour, and they managed to take us down south. We visited kibbutz Be'eri, where more than 100 people were killed. As you said, 6 bodies of those taken as hostages from that kibbutz are still being held in Gaza by Hamas. That's the depravity of Hamas. They hold on to the bodies of hostages as bargaining tools. And so we saw the horror, and we spoke to people who were there on that day and talked about the horror that unfolded. We also went further south to the Nova Music Festival site and spoke to survivors there and met a Bedouin Muslim man who helped to save many Jewish people on that day. And the whole time, though, the relevance of this to today and so much of what's dominating global news today, Danica, is that the whole time there was the dull thud of artillery in the background because we were only 4 to 5 kilometres away from the Gazan border at all times. And the artillery shells are still going on. The war is proceeding. The land incursion by Israel has been stepped up. So the war dominates all conversations here in Israel. The fate of the hostages, there are still over 50 hostages held by Hamas, only about 20 of those believed to be alive. Israeli soldiers, hundreds of thousands of them called up, young Israelis, of course, risking their lives and being killed in the war. So the whole focus is on the steps about getting those hostages back and ending the war. But it's a totally different debate to the one you're seeing globally and in Australia, where all of the onus, of course, is on Israel. The demonization of Israel has been extraordinary, whereas Israel, of course, has been fighting for its very existence, as it has done since its inception, because it's seen off Hezbollah to the north. It's still got the Houthis sending in missiles from the west. And of course, it's seen off attacks from Iran as well. But the fight against Hamas continues, and it's all about how that war can be ended and how those hostages can be returned.
Well, I wanted to ask you about that because, this week, Anthony Albanese, he even claimed that Israel was making excuses for why aid was unable to be delivered to civilians in Gaza. This is a bit of what he said.
Israel's actions are completely unacceptable. It is outrageous that there be a blockade of food and supplies to people who are in need in Gaza. We've made that very clear by signing up to international statements.
And those comments have received praise from Palestine's representatives here in Australia. Chris, has this reached Israel? What are Israelis telling you about Australia's stance on this issue?
Look, it sure has, Danica. They're appalling statements, and that's misinformation effectively from our Prime Minister. He's not alone. Of course, other world leaders are saying this. The idea that Israel is starving people in Gaza is a lie. It's more of the Hamas propaganda we hear. The problem here is Hamas. All of the international aid, billions of dollars of it that has been sent in, even in the last 19 months since the war began, of course, has been distributed by Hamas. And Hamas has stockpiled it. Hamas has been charging people money for the aid, using the money it gets from its own civilians to, of course, pay its terrorists and buy weaponry. So this has been the problem, and Israel has dealt with this, and Israel is now looking to get aid in through other means, have other organisations distribute it. So it's not aid that is held hostage effectively by Gaza and used to perpetuate the conflict. But this is the sort of demonisation you get of Israel the whole time. You've just got to think about it. People need to think about the facts here. The only reason anybody has any food or has been able to survive in Gaza for the last 19 months is because Israel and the international community have been sending aid in there. That's the simple fact. Now, there's no doubt that in recent weeks and the last 2 months, perhaps, Israel has pulled back on some of the aid shipments to try and draw down the Hamas stockpiles and to try and make sure the aid gets to people for free without going through Hamas. That's what's going on. And of course, aid is flowing into Gaza as we speak. It has been doing so in recent days. But this is the key. The key here is Hamas. The key is not Israel. The key is to make sure the aid goes directly to Palestinian people, not to Hamas, so they can profiteer from this aid that is given by the West, given by Western countries, on the basis that it should go to Palestinian people for free. When it comes to Anthony Albanese, the Israeli people here, and we met with the Assistant Foreign Minister Shireen yesterday, they feel betrayed by Australia. The relationship between Israel and Australia goes back right to the foundation of Israel, of course, and even before that. And Australia's always been a strong partner for Israel, but Australia is now jumping on the bandwagon and criticising Israel instead of putting the pressure on Hamas. And Australia's comments have just joined that sort of European UN line of attack. They've even got people in the Australian Parliament now, like Ed Husic, talking about sanctions. The point here is that maximum pressure needs to be placed on Hamas. The war needs to be ended, and Australia needs to be supporting Israel, and they're certainly not doing that. Israelis I've spoken to have said that they feel like Australia has stabbed them in the back and that Australia has now betrayed Israel. And the relationship between Australia and Israel now is at an all-time low. The question is whether under this Albanese Labor government it can be repaired at any stage, but the prospects at this stage are not good at all.
No, it's not good at all, and it's such a shame that the focus is never on Hamas. Never on Hamas. Yep. It's always on Israel, and that is the problem. Chris Kenny, good to catch up with you live from Jerusalem. Thank you so much for joining us on the show this evening. And, of course, Chris Kenny will be back next week, and he'll be sharing all of his experiences and all those conversations he's been having with people on the ground there with you next week. So do make sure that you tune in.